Welcome to the VBAC Link podcast. We are a team of expert doulas trained in supporting VBAC, have had VBACs of our own, and work extensively with VBAC women and their providers. We are here to provide detailed VBAC and cesarean prevention stories and facts in a simple, consolidated format. When we were moms preparing to VBAC, it was stories and information like we will be sharing in this podcast that helped fine-tune our intuition and build confidence in our birth preparations. We hope this does the same for you. To hear more about us and to hear our individual VBAC stories, be sure to check out episodes 1, 2, and 3. The purpose of this podcast is to educate and inform. It is not meant to replace advice from any other qualified medical professional. Welcome. Happy Wednesday. We are on episode 7 right now, and I'm really excited because we have some pretty fun things we're going to explain to you at the beginning of this episode. Up until now, we've been releasing episodes like kind of sporadically and every couple of days, but moving forward, we are just going to have regularly scheduled episodes every Wednesday morning. So this is our first Wednesday scheduled episode, and we are excited to get into a regular routine with everybody. So Wednesday morning, when you get up, make sure you're subscribed. Get on and download your episode while you're changing your baby's diapers or making breakfast or whatever you're doing, because we know you're all busy moms like us. Every once in a while, we're going to have a special edition of our episodes. Our first planned one is kind of exciting. Me and Megan are really excited, and we'll just throw those out every once in a while. So if you're surprised one day, then that's our goal, to surprise and keep you happy. So that's how we're going to work moving forward. We have a really cool episode today for a couple of reasons. First of all, I'm really excited about our guest, as you'll see when you meet her. But second of all, Megan is with me today. We, every once in a while, going to be on calls together. What you'll find out is we're not together very much, but when we are and when our schedules match up, we like to be both on the phone with you, and I'm going to actually turn it over to her now.
Yay! I'm so excited that everything worked out for me to be with you guys today. Can't wait to hear Kelsey's story. And don't forget to follow us on social media. Even though episodes won't be posted every day and just every Wednesday, we're still on Instagram and Facebook, and during the week we'll be posting other stories and other things on the feed, and we love to interact with you. So make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and bring us your questions. We'd love to answer them, whether or not it's on social media or in our podcast.
That's right, because sometimes the only adult interaction we get is with people on Instagram and Facebook. So go ahead and give us a follow there. It's at the VBAC Link on Insta and on Facebook. Megan and I were talking, we wanted to come up with a special name for our followers, for women like you that are hoping for VBAC or who have had VBACs and want to share their stories. So we decided on the term woman of strength, and we decided on that term because we know that all of you are women of strength. You are seeking to improve yourselves and improve your families and improve the outcomes for your babies, and we are so proud of you, every single one of you, even the ones we haven't met. We believe in you, and we have faith in your strength and your ability to overcome and make the best choices for your family. So we are going to just refer to you as women of strength from now on, because we don't want you to ever forget how strong you really are. All right, now we're going to move into our episode. I have my friend Kelsey here, and Kelsey, I was stalking VBAC hashtags on Instagram. It was, I think, the day we launched, and I saw Kelsey's story, and it excited me so much. Then I started looking at her Instagram page a little bit more and saw how cute and fun she is, and trust me, you are going to want to follow her on Instagram, and I'm going to put a link to her profile in our show notes. So go ahead, follow her. You're going to see exactly what I mean by her just fun, bright feed, and it will lighten up your day as it did mine. So I'm going to turn the time over to Kelsey, but before I do, I want to share part of her story that I feel like a lot of women are getting with VBACs now. And Kelsey's a really petite woman, and I forget how many doctors told her that she was just too small to ever push a baby out vaginally. And when I heard that, and then I saw and heard the victory of her story, it was just so exciting to me. So I'm going to actually turn the time over to her and let her tell you all about it. Are you there, Kelsey?
I am, yes. Hey, well, first of all, thank you again for giving me this opportunity. I'm so excited. But let's see, where do I even begin? So we got pregnant with our first son, and I had one of those really annoying, like, amazing, beautiful pregnancies that I was just glowing. I was happy. I didn't have any negative symptoms, really, whatsoever. I was really active. I did yoga. It was just completely night and day difference from my last pregnancy, but we'll get to that. But it was really, I didn't have a doula, but I went to a really well-known doctor in my area, and everything was good. Every appointment was fine. I did notice that there really wasn't much interaction. There was no, hey, how you doing? It was really just in and out. I swear I was probably never at an OB appointment for more than 10 minutes at a time. I feel like I waited longer to get into the appointment. So everything was fine, though. At about 36 weeks, which is crazy because it's pretty late in the game, I woke up, and I kid you not, my stomach looked like a giant box. So my intuition instantly said, oh, my God, this baby is transverse. He's flipping. And so I called my doctor. They got me in right away for an appointment, and she just kind of reached on up there and said, nope, I feel baby's head. He's head down. We're good to go. There's no ultrasound, nothing. So she just kind of set me on my way. And, in my mind, because at the time, this was my first pregnancy, I really put all of my faith and trust into my doctor. So I'm like, okay, he's good. He's head down, and we progressed on with the pregnancy. We were 5 days overdue. I shouldn't say overdue because it's completely normal past the due date. But and that's why we weren't concerned. It was just completely normal. He was going to come when he was going to come. So we had done a lot of walking. It was Memorial Day. It was hot. And that night, my husband and I laid down, and I was like the little spooning him and water. So, everyone says, like, it's not like the movies. It's not this big explosion. It's usually a little trickle. Mine was the explosion. It was like a fire hydrant spraying directly onto my husband's pelvis because he was
oh my gosh.
So we jumped up, and he starts cracking up. I start cracking up because I'm making a mess all over our bed to the bathroom, and then I got my first contraction, and it took me down to my knees, and I'm like, okay, this is happening. It's go time. So we kind of just rustled up our stuff. John had called the doctor. So I had to get in right away because my water had broke. So we got in, and things actually with him were progressing so fast. So I went in at a 5, and in only a couple hours, I was at an 8. I really wanted the unmedicated, delivery. So I was doing well with it. I really felt like I was coping with labor fairly well. Another hour later, I had another huge gush of fluid, and it kind of took me back because after that fire hydrant explosion, I really didn't think anything was left in me to come out, and it felt pretty significant. So we looked down, and it was black. So it was meconium. But I was really getting that urge, like I just had that deep urge to get the baby out. So after an exam, they wanted to see, how far along I was. They were kind of on their toes waiting to see if I could push. the nurse had said something didn't feel right. And so she hurried up and she pulled over the ultrasound machine that was next to the bed, and she said, "Your baby is breech."
Oh, no.
Yeah. So it was the two factors of meconium and breech. And it wasn't, minutes later, everyone came in, we're scrubbing up. I didn't prepare for a C-section. I know you really can't say you're prepared really for anything, because anything can happen in labor. We know that in birth. But I think I was just so gung-ho about, an unmedicated delivery that it just didn't even cross my mind, really. And that's naive of me, but it didn't. So I got scared, and of course I just looked at my husband and I started sobbing because I didn't know what to expect. I'm signing paperwork, they're asking me how many tattoos I have, what medal I have on my body, and I'm just like, what? I couldn't really process what was happening. So we went down to OR, and they sent me in the room to get the spinal. And for some reason, they didn't let my husband in for that either, which I never understood, because they wouldn't let him in a room for a needle in my back, but they let him watch my guts get cut open. So
right.
I couldn't really understand, but it kind of took me back because I really needed him. I needed him, there in me. So ended up confiding in the sweet nurse that was in the OR with me, and I had my face in her bosom as I was getting my spinal, and I was just sobbing into her chest, and she was, kind of just rubbing my shoulder, saying everything was going to be fine. My husband came in, and I had and I know a lot of women that I've talked to, experienced the same thing, but I just had these uncontrollable shakes, and I was on a table with my arms, to either side, and I was just shaking so dramatically, and I didn't know what it was. So I'm sitting here like, I'm sorry, I must be cold, and yada yada, and the anesthesiologist is like, no, it's because you have no control over your, nervous system right now. So he's like, everything's fine. And then I had like this random thought of, oh my gosh, I have a permanent retainer in my mouth. That's metal. I didn't tell them about it. And so I said, it was kind of funny, but I was so terrified. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a permanent retainer. And he was like, oh my gosh, did you write it down? I'm like, no, I didn't. And it was just like as if a permanent retainer was really going to make a big difference. But it's still, I had like the worst case scenario flashed across my mind. And he's like, you're going to be just fine. So my husband was there, and I felt the tugging, and Finn was born, and he was perfectly healthy. We didn't even end up needing any other, it was not necessary to stay longer than I had to. There was no meconium in his system, and they said, thankfully, because he was breech, when he did poop, it just flew straight out of me instead of passing by his face. So it was actually kind of a blessing in disguise. But like I said, everything with that was fine. The recovery was a little bit tricky. I did well with it, but I was bracing myself to do just about everything. As we know, it's quite interesting how much we use our ab muscles. But I knew that it's not what I wanted for our next pregnancies and birth. So right away, I knew I wanted to be back. It got interesting when I went in for my 6-week checkup, and my doctor was she was just very nonchalant about the whole ordeal. Oh, I guess I was feeling a bum and not a head. It happens all the time. I'm like, really? That happens all the time? Like, that's awful. That happens all the time. And she, in the same breath, was like, you know what? Now we can just schedule every one of your babies from here on out. It was just like, gosh. I kind of did one of those nervous laughs, like, like, what? I was kind of weighing in to see if she was joking or not, but she most definitely was not joking. She was serious. And so when I said, I want a VBAC, she said, okay, but I just knew right away that was going to be a battle if I had stuck with her. So I knew right then and there that it wasn't going to work for, future pregnancies. But in the meantime, we've got this beautiful boy. I would kind of tell people my story, and even some family, unfortunately, we were talking about our story and how, I ended up in a cesarean, and I just was getting those repeat comments of, well, you're so small anyways. Like, there's no way a baby is going to pass through those hips. And, just story after story of someone who knew someone who tried and pushed, and the baby's head was stuck for hours and yada, yada, and which I know really, truly does happen. But, I wasn't buying it that it was not going to happen for me. So the thing I think that triggered me the most is I went to my family doctor at the time, and my mom is also very small, and she had 4 C-sections, but for various reasons. None of them were that they couldn't be passed through. I have a brother with developmental disabilities. One of us is breech. There was just various things. But we were talking about future pregnancies and births, and my family doctor just flat out said, like, you and your mom are not made to birth babies. And so it just took me so far back. And I can remember getting in my car and crying out of rage, and I called my husband. He's like, what is the matter? I'm like, I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of being told that my body is not capable of having a baby vaginally. I just said there's no rhyme or reason. People have been having babies for millions of years, and I'm sure there was a couple petite ones in there. I've wanted a VBAC. I've always wanted one because it's just what I want, but that almost fueled it even more. So we ended up getting pregnant with our second son, and things were good. There was one little hiccup in the very beginning, and that we had a pretty significant subchorionic hemorrhage, and so I was a little nervous about that because in my mind I didn't want anyone to use any little thing as something they could hold over my head for a reason not to have a vaginal delivery. I guess I should probably say that when I got pregnant, I originally wanted a midwife. I called around to various locations asking to have a midwife take me on, and unfortunately in our area there wasn't any midwives that were comfortable with having a VBAC. They were all 100% supportive of it, but they just wanted me to have the support of a doctor. So I did find a location. They set me up. I was speaking with a midwife, and she had said that she couldn't personally take me on, but her coworker, who was an OB in the facility, would be, she's like, I know she would want to take you on. I got in with her, and I knew immediately that she was supportive. Like, she was a gun-ho supporter of a VBAC. I felt comfortable right away. I knew that she was serious about it because she openly discussed the miscommunication, I guess, or over-communication of the scares, of VBAC as opposed to, the risk of repeat cesarean. So she openly talked about that and how, and I told her, I said, we want a large family. We're thinking 4 or 5 kids. And I knew too, in all the research I had done, that repeat cesarean just wasn't going to be a good option for us. So, but she, like I said, she shared that information with me, and I really appreciated that. And I really liked her too because she worked hand in hand with midwives. So they kind of bounced things off one another, which was great. So we ended up going with that location. And right away, though, it was completely different. It was a completely different experience. Everyone there, they treated you like you were just, you're pregnant. How are you doing? The second you walked in the door, it was support. And I needed that so bad. because I hadn't gotten any kind of support from other than my husband before then. I also knew I wanted a doula this time around, so I contacted a doula service in our area and got connected with Melissa, and she was with us from the get-go. Absolutely amazing. I will never not have a doula. She was such an amazing component of our pregnancy and our delivery, but I got with her. And so moving on with the pregnancy, got to the subchorionic hemorrhage. They kept saying just to kind of expect a lot of bleeding, and I never bled, and I was almost panicking because I wasn't bleeding, which is really weird when you're pregnant. You want to bleed, but they kept telling me to expect this big rush of blood because it had to get out, and I never got it, but it ended up just being absorbed back into my system. So there was nothing that ever really commenced with that, which, thankfully happened. So in this pregnancy, things were good. I had the sciatic pain. It was not as smooth as my first pregnancy. We will say that, but it was not horrible. It was still a good pregnancy. But I found myself just totally immersed in information regarding VBAC. Like, I just wanted to know everything. I read my Ina May Gaskin books, and I was so excited for just this experience and, this unmedicated delivery and, feeling everything. But it was kind of sad because I was so excited, yet I felt like I had to do this research because I felt like I had to defend myself the whole time. Like, I went as far as to research my every last legal right within the hospital setting, because where I was going to be delivering was in the hospital. And, real research on VBAC and statistics. That way, if anybody came at me in any way, I was prepared for it. I was prepared to defend myself in my reasoning. And obviously I knew that if it was detrimental to my health or my baby's health, of course I would consider other routes. It wasn't a matter of me being like gung-ho against C-section. It was just I knew what I wanted, God willing, and it's so long as everything was good and healthy along the way. But like I said, I just found myself in all of this information, and as things started drawing nearer, my doctor had to, because it was protocol, set up a C-section date, a repeat cesarean date, and she had set it for 12 days past my due date, which at the time, I'm like, wow, that's really generous. There's no way I'm going to go over 12 days. That gives me plenty of time to progress. And she knew, I wanted no intervention whatsoever. I didn't want membrane sweep. I just, wanted to let this go. So I'm like, like I said, that was really generous of her. So we're getting closer to our due date, and I was having a ton of breaths and hicks the whole month of October. So I'm like, this kid's totally going to come any day now. He's right. I am low. I felt like my belly touching my knees at that point. We ended up getting to our due date, and then a week passed our due date, and the scheduled cesarean date just was dauntingly getting nearer and nearer, and I really started to be fearful that it was going to happen before I went into labor naturally. So the due date came, not due date, the repeat cesarean date came. It was actually the day before. I had an OB appointment just to see how things were going, and in my mind, I'm like, well, this is kind of like a pre-op appointment because my C-section is scheduled tomorrow at 5:30 in the morning. So I was really nerved up. I was really emotional because we were 11 days past our due date.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and even with that, and me wanting a VBAC in my mind again, it was just one more thing that they'd be able to, one more reason for them to say, we can't do this anymore. I went in, and it was one of those things, like really the stars and the universe truly did align, because my doctor was on vacation for a week before that. And it was one of those things where I could have had any random doctor on their team deliver, and I really wanted her, obviously, because we had talked and both wanted this VBAC for me so bad. So she was back from vacation, and she had her nurse sit me down when I got to the appointment, and she said, she apparently had a really long night. There was a lot of babies born the night before. And she said, you know what, you and baby are in perfect health. There's no reason for this C-section tomorrow. How about we reevaluate at the end of the week, and if baby, still hasn't come or you still haven't gone into labor naturally, we'll talk about gentle induction methods. So,
wow, that's awesome.
So in that moment, and this is where things got crazy, my doula was there with me as well as my husband, and I looked at them, and again, because I'm just emotional, and at that point I was just a mess, but I looked at them, and my eyes just welted up, and I felt the biggest sense of relief, the biggest. Like I still had a chance, they're giving me more than 2 weeks, which I just thought was so great, and we walked out in the parking lot, and I went into active labor. So I had strong contractions right from the get-go, but it was pretty wild, because I truly believe that mental block was really what was holding my body back from going into labor. I feel like just having that date, that scheduled C-section date, and me staring at that and focusing on that instead of focusing on just letting my body relax, it was holding me back. So to hear that I didn't have to go in tomorrow morning, that release, and that it was just relief. And I think that's honestly, like I said, I really feel like that's what helped my body just to do what it needed to do. So we were 35 minutes away from home. And my doula, she knew I wanted to go home in labor as long as possible, because again, I just didn't want to go into the hospital setting before, I was ready, and I didn't want opinions. I wanted to be able to do my thing. So my husband and I drove home. My contractions at that point were about 6 minutes apart, so he had to run and do some errands. I went and took my son to my mom, and I kind of just labored there for a while. And this was really interesting too, but my son was 2 at the time, and I was very quiet when I had my contractions, so I wasn't outwardly expressing that I was having one when I did, but every time I had one, my son would come and he'd give me the biggest hug, and he'd just say, "Oh, Mom." So he just intuitively, he knew, what was going on. So things started speeding up. I left my son with my mom. I went home. My husband ran me a bath, and then it didn't slow it down. I know sometimes running a bath can kind of slow down early labor, but things pretty quickly went from 6 minutes to 4 minutes, and I was talking to my doula, and she's like, Kels, you're this far overdue. You're 35 minutes away from the hospital. I really think we should probably get there. So packed up, and we got there, and I was in triage. And I should probably say, too, that I did do a birth plan this time around, and there were some things I really couldn't budge in when it came to what I wanted. And one of those things was because I was a VBAC, I had to be continuously monitored. But they knew I wanted to move around freely. They were willing to let me hop in the tub real quick if I wanted to. And then I also, this time on my birth plan, I did include, in case it ended up in another C-section, things that I wanted, like, skin to skin right away in the OR, because I didn't get that with, my first birth. He was I saw him for 2 seconds, and then he and my husband were off by themselves for 45 minutes. So I was really adamant about, even if it did end up in a C-section, I wanted that time. So anyways, we were in triage, and I was only 5 centimeters dilated, which was kind of shocking, but they're like, of course you're in active labor, like, we're getting you a room. So after in triage, everyone kind of slowly started finding out that I was a VBAC mom, and more and more people I found were poking their head in and seeing how things were going. I did test positive for Group B this time around, so I had to get that antibiotic rolling in me as well. So it was the antibiotic plus the monitoring that people were kind of checking in on. But I can remember feeling while I was laying in the bed in triage, this deep, a drop. I felt like my stomach probably physically moved down, and they lost the heartbeat, and it was panic mode. It went from, the couple people that were in there to 6 people and running around and, she's a VBAC, Mom, she's a VBAC. And my doula was whispering in my ear, Kelsey, just move. Like, I know the baby just moved. That's it. We got to find the heartbeat. And I don't know if I was just in a whole other world, or I was so immersed in these contractions that I was kind of dumbfounded almost. I was kind of frozen, and I don't know where she got the strength to do this, because I had a big old belly, but she physically took me and flopped me over onto my back. She just did like a quick flip of the hands, and there I was on my back, and the heart was back. So everyone was relieved, heartbeat was there, but it kind of for a brief moment put me on edge, because I again was scared that, this is one more thing they're going to hold against me. It's one more thing that's going to hold me back from accomplishing this. And it got to a point where I just said, you know what, Kelsey, like, you have to let go of that, and you just have to focus on yourself and this baby, and stop worrying about what other people are thinking. So we get into our room, and things were going really well, actually. I was definitely the one on all fours mooing like a cow the entire time. And my doula was just an absolute rock star, because she held that monitor. That fetal monitor was not staying on me for the life of me. It was moving every 2 seconds. So she sat there and held that thing on me the entire time. And I was in labor for 14 hours. So this boy took his sweet old time, that's for sure. But she held it on me. About 6 hours in, and it was pretty, I was handling it well, but it was pretty intense. It was very overwhelming. I needed a break, but I knew I didn't want an epidural. So I got a low dose of Stadol, and that really took the edge off for about 30 minutes. But it was honestly just what I needed. I could breathe for, 30 minutes. I still felt the contractions intensely. Like I said, it took the edge off, and I felt like I had a minute to breathe. And then, 30 minutes later, things got intense again, and I was ready for it. It was go time. So I really feel like I needed that. About 6 hours later, I was still in active labor. They were checking in. I was progressing, but it was not as quickly as I was anticipating. My doula kept saying, "Do you have to go to the bathroom? Do you have to pee?" I'm like, "No, I really don't. I really don't. I swear." But that proved to be otherwise. I'll share that in a little bit. But we got to the point. It was nearing the end of the night. We were close to it being the next day, and my water had not broken yet. So I got that broke. The doctor came in with her crochet needle looking thing. The water broke and things started moving quicker again. But it was funny because my doula the whole time was like, "Are you sure you don't have to go to the bathroom?" I'm like, "I really don't. I don't think so." So it finally got to the point of me needing to push. We were 10 centimeters dilated. It was go time. And I did ask, like, I got to the point where I was like, just give me the epidural. Just give it to me. And I actually said that, and my doctor and Melissa, my doula, kind of just looked at me and smirked, and they're like, we're going to push. They're like, okay, we get it, but no, we're going to push now. Started pushing, and oh my gosh, it was kind of embarrassing, but at that point, you guys know, like, you just don't care.
Oh, yeah.
Fluid just started spraying all over my doctor, and my husband was like, whoa, it's her water, and everyone was like, no, that's pee. So
oh my gosh.
Were unfortunately just me emptying my bladder onto my poor doctor.
Oh my gosh.
After that, I get why, Melissa, my doula, kept asking me why I had to go to the bathroom, because after that I pushed 3 more times, and Wells, my son, was out. So I guess it's duly noted for the next time, go to the bathroom. Like, get empty your bladder.
Yeah.
I was holding him back there, but it was so incredible. Everyone talks about the Ring of Fire, but for me, I feel like I was on, it's really hard to explain, but I just felt like I was on a whole other level, like almost not blacked out, because I was there, but it was almost euphoric, and I can remember pushing, and I found relief in the pushing. So whatever pain was there, I didn't feel it as I was pushing. When I let off from a push, of course, I felt everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what really got me is I saw them turn on the warming lights, and people kind of moved in closer, and I was like, oh my God, this is actually happening. Like, he's coming out. And then they said, reach down and feel your baby. And I reached down and I felt his head, and I gave that last final push, and, he was out and he was on my chest, and they respected every wish that I had in my plan. And it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. I wish I could relive that moment in all of its agony over and over and over again, honestly. It was just, and then he, like a kitten, found his way to my nipple, and he started nursing on his own right away. It was incredible. So that was his birth. I did hair, and I did not know that until I felt her stitching me back up as I was holding the baby, and I kind of just looked at, Dr. I'm like, did I rip? Did I tear? She's like, yeah, you did. But, don't even focus on that. Focus on your baby. Like, okay. So I did have, it was only a 2nd degree, but, it sure beat the recovery time from.
Amen.
The whole thing, I was just so grateful. Originally in my birth plan, too, I had put that, I didn't want any, residents in the room. I didn't want any more nurses than there had to be. But as I was progressing in labor and getting the feel for everyone, I was like, the more the merrier. Like, I just felt like I had a team of doulas. Like, every one of them were just so supportive and so encouraging. I had 2 students in the room with me, actually. The one of them was in tears. It was her first birth. The one nurse, she's like, I wasn't going to tell you this. She's like, but every VBAC I've ever been in had been unsuccessful. So she started to get emotional because this was her first VBAC experience. So it was incredible. Like I said, I really just felt like I had so much support from everybody in that room. And yeah, it was great. I feel like what was most traumatic was after birth, I got up for the first time, and I had a nurse on either side of me, and they're like, okay, if you start to feel dizzy, if you feel really hot, or you start losing, if you can't hear us anymore. And as she was saying that, I completely lost all sound around me, and I did a face plant into the bathroom wall.
Oh, no.
Passed out, and then threw up all over the place, and then I was like gold. I was good to go. So apparently all I needed to do was pass out and throw up to feel like $1,000,000. Did that, and like I said, the rest is history. It was just a really great experience. I will say, I think my dream birth, as wonderful as that was, is a water birth. But unfortunately, and even now, I've been kind of looking around, and no one does water births around here, which is really wild. But that's VBAC or no VBAC. I mean, if I want to go an hour away, they do water births, but for some reason here it's not normal policy. It's not part of their policy yet. So the hope is the next time I do get pregnant, I of course want to VBAC again. I want to continue to have, vaginal deliveries, God willing, but I really want to try for a water birth. But like I said, it was really great. It was a really great experience this time around. So, yeah, that's my story.
Oh, my gosh. That sounds so exciting. I loved every bit of your story. Did you say you hired your doula from an agency?
I really wanted her. So not only did quite a few of my coworkers go through her and just say that she was absolutely wonderful, but she had experience with VBAC. She had done, I want to say, it was in the 30s, somewhere around 30-something VBAC deliveries. So I was really comfortable with her, and I knew that someone, as much research as I did and, prepared myself, we all know how vulnerable we are in that time of labor, and I just wanted someone there that was going to advocate for me, and someone who had that kind of experience, and she did, and she was so great. I am so grateful for her.
Kelsey lives in Michigan, right?
Yeah.
I thought she lived in Utah, guys. Anyways, but she's in Michigan. So anyone that needs a doula, if you're going for a VBAC, it sounds like Melissa was her name, right?
Yeah, Melissa.
Yeah. Look her up, because I am all about having a doula for a VBAC. It's why I got started into being a doula, because I had a really incredible doula for my first VBAC. And so thank you for sharing that information, and thank you for spending time on the phone with us today. I'm so glad that your story worked out so well, and I'm so glad that you were willing to share with us today, and that you didn't think I was some crazy stalker person. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
Kelsey, that's an awesome story. I love it. As we're hearing more and more VBAC stories, we're hearing that moms are being told that their pelvises are too small or they're too small. And so we wanted to bring some education today on cephalopelvic disproportion, which is CPD. And Dr. Mazmunder, I think is how you say it, Dr. Mazmunder, he wrote an article on gynoline.com that really intrigued us, and we wanted to share some of that information today. And along with him telling kind of how or what's common in CPD moms as far as like the shape of the pelvis and diseases and things like that, which are super fascinating, so you should definitely go check those out. He talks about the diagnosis of CPD, and he said that diagnosis of CPD is actually very difficult to give. This is because it is difficult to estimate exactly how much the mother's ligaments and joints will give or relax before labor even starts. The fetal head is also has a great capacity to mold. The skull's bones can overlap to some extent and decrease to the diameter of the head. So a baby who appears to be big to pass through a mother's birth passage before labor may do so without any problem at all. He talks about trial of labor and that any mom should have the right to have a trial of labor despite any belief of the average size of the pelvis, as long as, the baby's an average size and the mom's pelvis is an average size. And he goes on further of how to estimate really the size of the pelvis, and really talks about a manual examination with the pelvic bones and the vaginal through vaginal examination, which was really intriguing, and CT scan and ultrasound. So if you are interested in learning more about CPD and what he has to say about CPD, give that website a look. If you're interested in checking out more of what he has to say about CPD, visit the show notes and we will post that link. It's super intriguing. We are always looking for more inspiring stories. To share your story or possibly be on one of our podcasts, post on social media with the hashtag #WeVBAC and tag @TheVBACLink or contact us from our website.
Be sure to rate us and share and leave your reviews. We are excited to hear what you think. For families local to Utah, be sure to check out our website, utahvbaclink.com, for more information on our VBAC childbirth classes and doula services. Thank you so much for listening. We are excited for you to begin your journey with us.